Welcome everyone to episode 191 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Penteleresco. I write stuff and podcast too. Today begins my conversation with the various Aurora Award finalists I've had the opportunity to interview in the last few weeks. Today I begin with Jayne Barnard, and I thought we just had a little quick conversation on Facebook right before I got her book cover for this. Maybe I should talk about book launches a little bit here, because book launches are a big thing and a big deal, and Jayne's going to be launching her book tomorrow. So Jayne, here's my advice to you. One, you're an awesome writer. Maddie Hatter is awesome. I know you're doing something brand new and different and darker, but as our conversation unfolds, we get the sense that you're talking about some really serious stuff that matters to you. And you know what? It's going to matter to everybody else that goes out there too. Number two, and this is what I do with everything I do, whether it's a live podcast, whether it's a Dr. Seuss off, or whether it's a book launch. Anyway, I digress on my own thoughts, but everything you should do, you should have fun. People are going to come to see you, and they're going to root for you. I'm rooting for you. You were awesome. You were an amazing person to chat with. You got a picture of me looking like the terror that flaps in the night that will probably live on in infamy forever and ever. Beyond that, though, you were great, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck today at Owl's Nest Books. So let's just get to that conversation with Jayne Barnard, okay? Okay. So, we warmed up. I dressed like Darkwing Duck. I was the terror that flaps in the night. And now I'm with Jayne Barnard. So, Jayne, if there's anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good.
You are the terror, the wrong number at 3 a.m. That's about it.
Yes, indeed.
But it was not actually 3 a.m. the last time you interviewed me, Josh?
No, it wasn't. It was it was midnight.
Yeah, it was midnight.
It was midnight. You were in BC. I was here.
Yep.
Well, I was here, not here, but in the city for Calgary, and we were talking and we goofed off for a little bit, and then Maddie Hatter was about to come out.
I think, yes, the first Maddie Hatter was coming out.
Yeah. Now, 2 years later, here we are in Tim Hortons, where I've already done dress up. So how have you been? How's life been treating you?
It's been a very exciting year. Yeah, well, some good, some bad, but it's been a very exciting year on the book front, because not only do I have 2 more Maddie Hatter books out now, but I have the first in my mainstream contemporary suspense novels set at Bragg Creek is out now, and the official launch party is literally a week from tonight. And I'm up for 2 awards, which is very exciting.
High five. I'm only up for 1.
Oh, I know. And let me say, Josh, congratulations. This is your first Aurora nomination, right?
Yes.
Very well done.
Yeah,
Proud of you.
I was shocked. Because I didn't put myself down for nomination. That's actually the weirdest thing. I got an email one day, it's Dear Aurora. I was like, wait, what? This is a prank. No, it's not a prank. It's, oh, wow, cool. So I just look at it as it's a cool honor, great opportunity. I figured just to get myself out there more, and I'm taking as much advantage of it as I possibly can. Also, I'm just doing as much crazy stuff as I possibly can between now and then.
So, situation normal?
Kind of. It's gotten crazier. It's gotten crazy for me. I don't know. Like when you this is not your first year being nominated, I don't think, right?
No. Deadly Diamond was nominated for the same 2 awards: the Alberta Book Publishing Award and the Aurora for Young Adult Fiction.
Yeah. So, did your profile go up as a result?
I don't know if it specifically went up, but I did notice a lot more people were interested in my second book, so probably that's where they saw my name first.
That's right.
And I think this is an important part that a lot of writers don't realize, is that getting on a short list like that is almost as big a pat on the back as winning is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot less pressure.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no pressure for me. Win or lose, I'm like, I'm here. Cool.
Yes, exactly.
Right? I'm here. Cool. So, but, yeah, that's cool. So you've done 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have more plans?
Yes. The 4th one, Maddie Hatter and the Singapore Sting, is going through a very convoluted, one might say torturous production process that involves so far 2 different sensitivity edits for 2 different cultures. It's really serpentine process for what's actually the usual style of Matty Hatter book. Lots of fun, lots of froth, lots of airship travel, clockwork critters of amazing variety, including clockwork panda bears, and this time clockwork scorpions as tall as your knee. How's that for a terror in the night?
It kind of is. It reminds me of my time in Arizona.
Ooh.
I was in Arizona, and again, you see all kinds of critters down there, like these you don't see up here. Some are small, like red ants. Then you look at bugs that are like big enough to be there, let alone it's like you look at them. You look at like when you see that the spider, the natural predator, is smaller than the bug. You're like, who's the predator here? I'm not so sure anymore, right?
Oh, so kind of like crime writing.
Yeah.
Who's the predator, who's the prey?
Yeah. So, but it sounds like you're having a lot of fun in that world. So, I guess the question I'm going to ask is, since you're doing young adult, adventure, pulp, steampunk, one thing, and then you're doing true crime on the other. It's like I imagine from a headspace perspective, it's a very different voice.
And it's not true crime. I'll just correct you on that, but
Okay,
it's very reality-based crime. The Falls Mysteries are a set of 3 so far. The first one's just out, as I said. They deal with serious real-life issues is set in contemporary recognizable society, like stalkers and vengeful exes and betrayals of the worst kind by someone you thought solidly had your back, and financial pressures and all of the things that just any normal 30, 40-year-old faces in our society, and they happen to be set at Bragg Creek, which is kind of my love letter to Bragg Creek, because honestly I would live there any day, barring the occasional flood. And this one, just to add another layer of stress to the writing of it and the psychological pressure of it, is set in the psychological headspace of June waiting for that 2013 flood to happen again. Because every year in Bragg Creek and in Canmore and in High River, people tense up. There's a recognizable psychological profile that happens after a natural disaster of that magnitude, even where there's not a loss of life or a huge loss of life. The violation of what you thought was a formerly safe environment, or fairly safe environment, the destruction of your home and maybe your business and the risk, leaves a psychological scar that takes 3 to 5 years to start really working its way out of your psyche. And that's where that mystery's set. So that's another whole layer, in addition to PTSD and stalkers and betrayal and all of the other terrors and some vehicular homicide potentially. There's this miasma of dread of what is the river going to do. So when the flood falls is when you find out what the river did this time.
So unlike last time where we were just silly for like 20 minutes, so I'm actually going to get serious for a second here.
Okay.
Like I said, I have a theory. See, because I know this when I write my own stories. We tell our own stories through our stories. Does that make sense?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask this. So what about those issues in particular? Why do you in particular care about them so much?
Wow. That goes a long way back. Now, floods and natural disasters, I've been on the edge of 4 so far in my life and always managed to escape relatively without damage, but I'm conscious of the effects, so there's that. I do suffer PTSD from some incidents that happened earlier in my life, and I was stalked by an ex-husband for many years when I lived in Saskatchewan.
Wow.
So I'm extremely familiar with the psychological processes that women go through when they are isolated and they know somebody is out there watching them and waiting to get at them when they're vulnerable. So I wrote a lot of that into the book. And that's only one of the 3 point of view characters. The other point of view character, and this is something I've never explored in print, so this is where I'm going to get really serious in response to your question. The other point of view character has myalgic encephalomyelitis, more commonly known as ME, which is a neurological illness that affects 580,000 Canadians. 120,000 of them so severely that they don't ever leave their homes or see daylight. And I'm one of that 580,000, and for a while I was one of that 120,000. For quite a few years I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't see people, and so on. So I wrote the second character working her way out of that darkness, trying to find her way back into the world, and all of the things that she goes through, trying to find treatments that work, trying desperately to get some of her old life back.
That's interesting. Also, it sounds like I being sick and being unable to do the things you're accustomed to. I have a little experience with that, not to the degree you do, but I have some experience with that. So I never got to, but if it happens long enough, right? I think one of the more interesting things personally you'd go through, and I'm sure your character goes through, is you get cooped up for so long, you get used to it, and then going out becomes a frightening thing, because your world was forced to shrink because you had to take care of whatever problem you needed to take care of, which is perfectly understandable. But if you do it for a long time, you get used to it, and when you get used to it, right? It's amazing what happens when all of a sudden that's gone. It's almost like you have to rediscover who you are all over again.
And I'm nodding because I really understand where you're going with this. I am still sick, and I will have this illness till the day I die, so it's really a management issue. But now, instead of it taking me 60 hours a week to manage, I'm down to managing it in about 20 hours, and that frees up the other 40 hours to do other things. But I know one of the things that I noticed when I hadn't actually spoken to anybody who wasn't being a caregiver to me for about 4 years, I had lost completely the ability to just have a normal conversation with anybody. Mm-hmm. And if you only saw me, every second year, you probably didn't notice that much wrong, or you thought, well, she's really tired, and I thought she was smarter than that. But for the first 2 or 3 years that I was out of that bedroom, I had a really hard time remembering just the basic social interchange that goes on when you sit like we are across a table talking to each other.
So where I have a little understanding of that is when I went to fix my teeth. Right? Now, I was so used to where my teeth were that when I went to fix it, I had to kind of face some of my own personal, like the leftover scars from that, mm-hmm. and let them go. And I'm still like I feel like there's like a different me than I was last year, me before this and me after this. And it's interesting to see what that evolution has become for me. So I'm going to ask another really serious question here. So Miss Jayne Barnard, you probably are not quite the same person you were then. I'm going to probably assume that that you've gotten wiser and stronger going through this. And she's nodding her head on that one naturally. But I think the real question is, what is the biggest change you've noticed?
Oh, I think the biggest change for me personally is that I am every single minute of every day when I'm interacting with people, I am conscious that they may have a whole tragic story that I don't know anything about. Just like when they look at me now, they don't know that I have that whole 15 years of tragedy where literally we expected me to drop dead at any day, any week, any hour. And the whole family's life was basically on hold waiting for me to die. So yes, I came out of it stronger, but I came out of it with so much more compassion and so much less judgment. One of the things about ME is that when people see you casually, you look perfectly normal to them, and people don't know that you are hanging on by your fingernails to even sit upright and meet their eyes because you're so exhausted you could fall over right there. So I've had a lot of experience of being judged harshly and being unable to effectively fight back. And now every time I see somebody, I think, okay, what is going on in their life that they are hanging on by their fingernails? And so I try to treat everybody as if they've just come out of a really traumatic situation, and all they need from me is to be kind and not judge them for a little while until we see where we're at.
Yeah. I've tried to, like I said, for me, I just try to treat everybody the same. Because I recognize that, like, okay, as much as self-aware as I am that I have my own battles, you have yours. Your husband, you got that right? Your husband has his own battles. Your kids have their own battles. And everybody has their own battles. Actually, it's the one thing everybody has in common. Right? And if we looked at it from that perspective, I think we'd all get along a little better.
I think we would.
Yeah.
I think we go into a lot of interactions expecting too much of each other.
We're back on right here.
Okay.
And there we go. We are back. So, in lieu of this great revelation, I had to spill coffee, ladies and gentlemen. That's how the universe works. Great revelation of truth. We were talking about the fact that, going about people expecting too much from each other.
Right. Okay, now see if I can recapture that train of thought. Dragging it back to my books, a lot of I think the common element between the very fluffy steampunk Maddie books and the very gritty, grim Falls mysteries is the elements of friendship, and more specifically women's friendships. How we act with our friends, what we expect of them, what they expect of us. Sometimes, you get into a traumatic situation and you find out that the friend you always counted on is not there for you. And that's a big shock. How do you handle that? What do you do? Very often, if you're looking around and if you are open to it, you find there's someone else in your vicinity who is really willing to be there for you in this situation. And you might never have become friends with them because of what you expected of them or didn't expect of them from the first. And in the Falls mystery, why that's important is because Lacey is my burnt-out ex-cop from the Lower Mainland. She feels like a complete failure. She gets there, she's working a temp job, and one of the first people she meets is this apparently drugged-out woman who can't, tidy her hair and everything, and she has to take her home from this museum where she's working. She makes a snap judgment that the woman is a suburban housewife addicted to prescription drugs, and she's just losing it. And to Lacey, this is an imposition because it's a job that she's left behind because she can't put it out there anymore. She can't care for people. But then she finds out about Jan's illness, ME, and chastises herself a bit, but she still doesn't think that she might need Jan. She thinks Jan is a non-entity in the world of the novel because Jan is obviously incapable of even looking after herself, much less helping anyone else. And then she finds out that's not true. And she finds out that this person who looks so helpless on the outside has reserves of strength that she didn't know about, has information that she's gathered by years of just being quietly in that community watching because she was too tired to talk. And her life is eventually saved by this woman that she completely dismissed at the beginning of the book. And, there's vice versa too. We can't always tell who the important people are going to be in our lives, and if we treat everyone with the open spirit of friendship until they prove otherwise, we get a lot further in life.
We do. It's funny because this is the other thing that's happened this year. The one big change I made is I consciously don't chase people anymore. Right? So what I've noticed is a lot of certain people have completely fallen out of my life as a result of this. But the people that are left over and the things that I'm doing now are more reflective of where I want to go. Right? And the people that are left, it's surprising, the people that are there to pick up and be there, and it's you wouldn't have, again, same thing, you don't expect necessarily it's those people, but they are those people, and that's, you recognize them, you kind of treasure them and treat them accordingly. As far as the other ones, I learned the other thing too, is you gotta leave the door open, because going back to something we just talked about earlier, I don't know what their struggles are right now. They might be going through struggles, they might be going through their own hard times, and right this minute, they aren't available. They may be at this point, much like I've done some pruning, they're pruning right now just to take care of what needs to be taken care of. maybe the door opens someday where things go back. Maybe it doesn't. But, it's a necessary thing sometimes, I think, to figure out who's really there. And I find that as you get old, that circle gets smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe by the time I know I dare say you're older than 39. I'm going to say you're 39. Just
Sure, let's say
let's say 39. When I hit that age, right, I know it'll be less people. And then ultimately, I think it just comes down to, I think with friendship, one of the big things that I recognize is I moved a lot as a kid. So for me, my close friends are a very small group of people because I've moved around so much.
And I am nodding again because I grew up in the armed forces.
Yeah.
And I moved every second year, or in a couple of rare and very welcome instances every third year for the entire first 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that feeling. And it does impact you, moving and changing, and the friends that you can be in touch with. Probably that's changing a bit because now there's social media. You can more easily keep in touch with your friends.
Yeah, yes and no. It's easier to keep talking, but there is something to be said about being in that vicinity and going through the exact same struggles, right?
Yes.
And
you need some shared experience.
Yeah, and the farther away you are from that, right? The farther, don't get me wrong. I still I have 3 friends from high school I still talk to, which I think is that may not seem like a lot, but that's actually a bit of a victory, I think. Right? A lot of my friends have disappeared. A lot of my friends, again, living their lives, and it's not a bad thing. It's just we all go down our own paths.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that brings me around to something else that I was just thinking about while you were talking, and that is how sometimes we think we're writing about the past, but we're actually writing situations that are going to come up in our future that we might not have recognized if we hadn't written a story about them. At the start of When the Flood Falls, Lacey is in Bragg Creek, and she's going to have to talk to her old university roommate. She hasn't seen her for years. They didn't like each other's husbands. It was the usual kind of drifting apart that happens to a lot of people in their 20s and early 30s. But her friend Dee, ex-university roommate Dee, is very well connected to the Calgary real estate community, and Lacey is really out of home since she left the Lower Mainland precipitously, and she has to try and get resettled in Calgary. So she's going to force herself to go and talk to this woman who's been calling her and leaving messages every day for 3 weeks going, come up, come up, come up. Now, when I wrote that, I wasn't really thinking about anybody in my life, about going back to somebody and wondering if you would be welcome, and wondering if they would help you just based on the fact that if they would put aside all the old differences and hurts and slights and the drifting apart and help you just because you were once friends. And, lots of people go through intense experiences in university. But then this summer, I was speaking at the Saskatchewan Festival of Words in Moose Jaw, where I used to live. And it was the closest that I've been in 20 years to a woman that I was very close with when our children were very tiny. Our children are almost the same ages, and a lot of new mothers will tell you that it's a very desperate time, and you come to depend on a certain small group of other moms that you can call in the middle of the night crying because you don't think you can cope for another second. So, but, I had moved to Calgary, and she had gone on with her life, and we hadn't really had a lot of contact over the years. But I was going to be there within 40 miles of her place in Saskatchewan, and I thought, well, I should just give her a call and see. And I did the week before we left and said, I will be in your vicinity for this weekend, and would you like to, if you have time, and if you're even at home, would you like to get together? And I didn't hear back, and I didn't hear back, and I didn't hear back, and I thought, well, I guess that's the end of that then. It wasn't a big part of my trip, but it was,
it would have been nice.
It would have been nice. And so there I am, the last night that I'm going to be in Moose Jaw. We're at an evening event with the festival, and my phone is turned off so that it's not a nuisance to anybody else. But I get back to my hotel room, I turn on my phone, and there is a voice message from this person I haven't seen in 20 years. she doesn't quite sound like herself. And thinking, well, she's saying the right things. She's saying, does she want me to come down, and so on. But then 10 minutes later, she sends me a text too, and she says, I'm a real goof on the phone. Please don't take that personally. I really want to see you, and I'm going to remind you of this is my phone number, and this is how you find my house. And please, please, please come tomorrow. And it was one of those moments where the sudden shift for me was, she really does remember. She really does want to see me. All those things we went through years ago, they still count. And we went the next day on our way home, and we had a marvelous time, and we bonded like we'd almost never been apart within 15 minutes. And that's exactly what happens in the book that I wrote 5 years ago about Lacey meeting her old university roommate. Within half an hour, they are right back to as tight as they were in university. So I think the miracle of friendship is aligned to the miracle of books, and why I write about friendships. I write about the kind of friendships I want, as well as the kind of friendships that I hope I can warn people away from. Because not all friendships are that good.
No. Some friendships are what they are. They are, and that's it. And again, it's one of those things that requires people being willing. This goes to something I think very highly about, is self-worth. You gotta look in the mirror and go, okay, is this really worth my time or my place, right? I mean, like I said, that was one of the reasons I made the decision personally I made this year, right? Not to chase anybody down. Anyone that wants to be there can be there. Anyone that doesn't want to be there, right, can be there as well. And that's all there is to it. And I'm like, if you're not interested, I won't see you, and that's fine. I will find other things to do, like, interview a metal band in their own secret studio. Yeah, right. And that's it. Like we all at the end of the day, I truly believe we all get what we want.
Yes.
I do actually believe that. I think we got to be careful about what we actually want, because if we are not careful and really don't think it through, we can miss out on a lot of things that could be good.
And to add to that, this very philosophical insight that I had several years ago, you have to clear away some stuff to make room for the things you want in your life. If you're spending all your time with people who aren't fulfilling you, or in jobs that aren't fulfilling you, and I mean, very few of us in this day and age can afford the luxury of only doing the things that we love. But if your daytime work and your evening social time are filled with people who don't fulfill you, you have to clear some of that out somewhere before you have room for the people who will be more accepting of who you are now. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned the change in your teeth and so on. I'm going to go way, way back and say, when I was 12, I was fooling around on a monkey bars in a playground, and I smashed the entire front set of my teeth. And my family was military, and we got the bare basic dental care, and that was it. So I had jagged, ugly front teeth for the next 9.5 years, mm-hmm. until I got my first job with a dental plan, and I got my teeth fixed. And when I looked in the mirror after the construction work was done, I smiled, and I wasn't ashamed of my smile, mm-hmm. for the first time in all through my teen years. And so for me, that was a huge psychological boost.
When I first damaged my teeth, it was when she literally chasing my dreams. I looked at that kind of as it made me aware of the price of potentially failing, like just going all in. You take risks, sometimes they don't work out. My teeth were the price of that. On the flip side, I came out of it with a big understanding of who I was as a person. So for a while, it was good. A battle scar from confronting yourself in the abyss, and that's actually really good. Everybody should go through that. Not necessarily losing the teeth, but that confrontation does need to happen.
And right? If you come out of it with a good story, that's
absolutely.
Bonus.
Well, that's a bonus. But this goes back to something I said earlier. After a while, you get used to it, and then somewhere along the way, you recognize that there's still things that need to be taken care of, and that happened to me last year. Now it's me going, I'm better than this. And it was an intellectual thing when I first did it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I actually made this decision, all of a sudden all this anger and a lot of it just pain came to the surface. I couldn't figure out why, because again, it was like, but then I realized I'm trying to fix this, and now everything that I'm trying to fix is just coming to the surface.
Coming up where you can see it so you can fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right? It surprised me. Like the emotional part of that actually surprised me. I didn't expect that. Mm-hmm. But then I came out of it on the other side. I'm like, okay, I understand it. It's not really. It was a physical thing, but more than that, it was about how I looked at myself, and I had to actually change that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. I've seen it fairly often with people who were abused in childhood or people who have PTSD. After everything is good again, after the chaos has settled down, then all of the old stuff starts to come up, and you have a chance to re-examine it and change your perspective about it.
That happened too.
Yeah. I thought it might have.
It was very public how that actually happened.
Oh dear.
So the individual I worked for, I did a podcast for a GoFundMe to fix my teeth way back. I don't know if you saw it. If you did, right? The author I worked for decided to come to the surface, and that was oddly vindicating. And I'm not entirely proud of that, but oddly vindicating. But also, it made me re-look at who I was 10 years ago and who I am now. And I'm not the same guy, right? I'm a lot different. That doesn't mean I don't understand that guy 10 years ago, because that was me, and I totally was. But I came out of that confrontation with like, I'm not that person anymore, and I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be something better. Right? And I'm trying. I don't always succeed.
That's all any of us can do is try.
Yeah.
I spent the weekend at a wedding with people from about as young as 23 all the way up to late 60s, and one 90-year-old. But the people who were most focused on growing and change and reflecting on where they'd been were the people in their mid-30s, about early to mid-30s, who suddenly had, they've had a stable job for a while, their finances are more or less stable, their student loans are usually paid off. All of a sudden they have this space in their life where they can look at everything and they can go, okay, where am I now? Is this where I wanted to be? And if not, is this my chance to make that change? And so that's one of the reasons why I write about, in the Maddie books, they're all 20-some, early 20s or late teens, they're all on the cusp of that big change. And then in the Lacey books, they're all in their early 30s, and they're making the next big change, because we don't stop growing, ever. We have to work hard to not grow, let's put it that way.
Yes, I have seen it, where there is, you can actually choose to stop at any time. But the problem when you do that is then this goes back to kind of you in the bedroom, right? Your world gets smaller. Yep. Over time, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller until eventually either you step out or you no longer have a place in the world.
Exactly. And I have, in the second Falls mystery, I'm dealing with some issues around terminally ill people and medically assisted dying. And I spent a lot of time with a woman who is in exactly that situation. She's been labeled terminal for years now, but she hasn't actually managed to die. And her world is almost entirely confined to the one room. If you want to see her, you go into her room. She almost never comes out. She very rarely sees or feels sunshine. And it's an unnatural way to live. And it has had tremendously confining effects on her spirit. Some people live until the very moment of their death. They are out there just experiencing everything life can throw at them to the best of their ability, given whatever their health challenges are. And other people start expecting to die almost from the moment they're born.
There's one of my favorite quotes from Stephen King's Shawshank. You're either busy living or you're busy dying. And it's true. I mean, look, one day I'm not going to be here anymore. One day you're not going to be here anymore. And I mean, I don't want to have in my head this whole concept of if only I'd.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts a lot. It really, really does if that's in your head with anything you do. Now, I may not get to everything on the mountain on this grand scheme I'm trying to get into. But in some ways I've already come pretty far, and I still want to get farther still.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but if it ended because this was as far as I could go at this time, I can live with that, right? If it ends and I just don't do it because if only then me and the big man upstairs, he's gonna be like, you fucked up, and I'm gonna be like, sure did. You know, I don't want that kind of fuck up in my life. I'd rather make 1,000 mistakes or make 10,000 mistakes. Because I think at that point I can honestly say I've lived, I've tried, and I think that's a healthy way of being, actually, no matter what you believe.
Yeah, for me, the whole process of being where I am now, published, The Falls Mystery, the one When the Flood Falls, was the book that I was halfway through writing, and I had no published books when I went into that trough in the bedroom in the dark for years. I thought at that time I couldn't coherently write a 2-line email. And for somebody who'd been a writer self-identified as a writer of fiction since 8 years old, since 3rd grade, that was a blow. It was like the last vestige of my dreams were gone. And at that time, I couldn't even see finishing a short story or an email most of the time, much less finishing the book. It took me about 5 years before I was even strong enough to write a short story again that made sense, that anybody wanted to publish. And now I'm kind of forgetting where I was going with that.
It's okay.
But
recyclable glitter. Keep going.
we don't ever, as long as we still have a passion, as long as we still have places we want to go, we're still moving forward. And I think that's ultimately what got me out of that dark bed where so many people would have just stayed there until they died, is I wanted to finish a story. And then I wanted to get a story sold. And then I wanted to finish that book that I had been stuck on, because all those characters were left dangling at a very traumatic moment. And I finally did that, and I didn't know then if anybody would ever publish it. But I have written, between finishing the first draft of this book and finally seeing it in print, I have written 5 other novels, and I've seen now 4 of them, or now three of the other ones plus this one in print. And do you want to believe how terrifying it is for somebody who can't even reliably make their own food in a day to say, yes, I will promote a book, yes, I will find ways to market this book and get it into the hands of readers who will love it. Yes, I will do podcast interviews with people. Yes, I will do blog posts for people I've never met. Yes, I can find within myself the faith and confidence that I will meet the challenges that this new life will bring. But it takes, for me, tremendous discipline all the time to manage the 20 hours that I need to do just to be functional on the health front in order to do all of these other things.
I think, although, again, I'm nowhere near like this. I think it's just one of the things I've recognized as I've gotten a little older. I have to take time to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have to. It's not a question anymore. Nope. You are no longer quite so young and invincible. At some point, you do need to rest. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget still. It's one of
that's the other thing I noticed at that wedding. All those vibrantly alive young people who could dance for 8 hours straight, flinging themselves around dance floors.
I can do that. Next day, I'm not doing much for like the morning. But I'm at that point. I'm young enough still where it's just like, I can outpace a 20-year-old. But the thing is, the next day the 20-year-old's still going, and I'm like, no, I need a nap.
Yeah, I could keep up the 20-year-old for about half of one song on the dance floor, and then I sat back down, and that's where I was for most of the rest of the night. But I danced.
That's right.
And that would not have been possible 10 years ago.
So, congrats. when I get to 80, when I do get to 80, my master plan is to skydive.
Oh, yeah.
Because I look at it like this: at 80 years old, I would live a pretty full life. If something were to happen there,
Exactly. See, my goal is to go dual hang gliding, where they have the strap-on harness, so they take you out and do it. I just want to be there seeing it all.
Oh no! See, I would like to do that actually too.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. That would be fun. Although I get to the point where I hang around on my own. I'm definitely going to be the middle-aged and crazy one. Right.
Don't wait till you're middle-aged.
I'm already crazy. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Look, did you read my Facebook post? It literally says living crazy. That's it. And I'm letting myself, because again, when I went through my hard time, I recognized even then, I had my own confrontation with mortality, and I just recognized that one day I'm going to die. And then when that actually sinks in, you're like, oh, I better get on with that. Now, a lot of people, that doesn't happen. I did it at 25. I realized that it doesn't usually happen at 25.
Yeah.
But ever since then, it's been like, for me, I have 3 books of poetry out. I have a comic book I've done. I got my first novel almost ready to go. I accidentally invented a board game. I'm kind of playing that. I get to do this. I started this Power Packs literally kind of by accident, and I just kind of like went, let's just see how many cool people I can meet. And you're going to be like episode like 190 something.
Wow. So I was episode like 4 or something.
20 something.
20 something the first time? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so just give you an idea. Just like I've done a lot of these.
Really, you're coming along a long way, baby.
Yeah. So I got more crazy things I gotta do next year, and that's just life. I mean, I'm here. I might as well do the things that matter to me while I'm here, because I don't know. Nothing's guaranteed.
See, compared to you, I'm a slow learner.
Yeah.
Because I have been in death's postal code 4 different times.
Oh, no.
And every time I come back and I go, okay, I've got another chance. This time I'm going to make it work. And then, boom, something would get me again.
So here's the other thing that a lot of people don't recognize until they get older. Life likes to distract you.
Oh, yeah.
Some of these distractions are unavoidable. Mm-hmm. Some of them are. And that's the thing. And the challenge you got to figure out is which ones are actually avoidable. Right? Right? Like, do I really need to chase the person that's currently doing acid on the street? No, probably not. That's a distraction that's going to lead to a lot of headaches.
Do I need to answer the phone call from that person who is always drunk at 4 o'clock in the morning and wanting to come crash at my place for a few days?
No.
Learning to say no to all those distractions is what I think every creative person has to do.
I think every person, period, has to do. Recognize. No is a really simple word. It takes a little guts to say it, though.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a simple word. I've used it a little bit this year with some things, because again, no one ever get the impression of being taken for granted by anybody. And if I get that impression, it's just a hard no.
Yeah. You have to make those calls for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. No, you have to. It's a good thing. So I learned this based on the fact that I value my time more than my money. Mm-hmm. And because I value my time more than my money, I also charge accordingly.
Yes, if you're not worth my time, you are definitely not worth my money.
Yes, and also, if you are wasting my time, you're going to pay for it.
Right.
That's because I can't get that back, so you're gonna compensate me one way or the other for that.
And since I have such a very limited amount of time and energy that I can put, every week I have to choose, am I going to write today, or am I going to cook some food today? Am I going to write today, or am I going to see my friends today? Am I going to write today? I can only do 2 of the 3 things. I can only look after my health, which is not optional, and then I can either work on my writing, or I can work on the rest of my life. And so every day is a balancing act of that, and I have had to be really ruthless at saying no. Much as I would love to go to all my friends' book launches, for example, A, I have way too many friends who are writers.
Yes.
And B, if I go to those, then I literally can do nothing for 2 days afterwards recovering. And if that is a real friend, they will understand that I am with them in spirit, but I cannot put the physical energy there.
That all said, you did miss me sounding like a goldfish in front of the stage.
Oh, darn! Barnard.
And you've also missed me making a whole crowd read Dr. Seuss out loud. You should definitely at least do that next year at When Words Collide.
I will read Dr. Seuss out loud for you.
Yes.
I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. I will not eat them in a house. I will not eat them with a mouse. Would you like me to go on? Because I used to play that guy in children's theater.
Okay, so this is I'm going to let you in on a secret. So next year, the game is going to be called Stitch and Seuss.
Ooh.
So this is how it works. You can read from any book, and you're going to follow anybody in a hat. And you can work with people. You can work without by yourself. Doesn't really matter. Here's the catch. You can't do it in normal voice. You have to sing it, slam it, rap it, come out. Seriously, you missed Fox and Socks being read in a Yoda voice.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
And a Russian voice.
Uh-huh.
And a Valley Girl off. It was a hoot. So I'm going to take so the Stitch and Seuss game is going to be really simple. There's going to be a whole bunch of books. You can read any one of them you want, depending on how many people are playing for X amount of time. But you cannot do it like a normal reading. You have to actually make it creative in some way or another. Because that way everybody can have fun.
Oh, see, I would like to pair up with my ideal pairing.
Yeah.
Would be Boris and Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle, and we would read them as Boris and Natasha.
Yes.
Darling.
Yes. Fox and Socks lines are perfect for Russian. They really are. But so I'm going to invite you now, because I will be pitching that next year, considering how well it went last year. I really pity whoever was beside us.
Oh, dear.
We were laughing that hard. So, yeah, Miss Jayne, you're awesome. And I think we have a good interview here. What do you think?
It's been a fascinating one, and it's not really been what I was expecting when I came up here, because we didn't really talk about our books that much at all. But we talked about a lot of really cool stuff.
So I'll let you know a little secret about my podcast, how my philosophy of how it's evolved a little bit. I truly believe a sale is an equation. Who you are, what do you offer, why are you here? Why should I care, I should say. Now, why are you here? Why should I care?
Right.
So I answer who you are. You're going to attract that kind of person to you. I think, personally, I came out of this with a lot more respect for you and everything you've been through.
Are you saying you didn't respect me before?
I respected you before, but layers.
I know, we get to know each other the more times we meet.
Yeah, exactly.
We develop.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think a lot more people than you realize relate, not necessarily to your disease, but just like that kind of struggle. People with depression, people with, people with a lot of debilitating, like their own PTSDs, illnesses, things of that nature, right? So I think that's a more important connection to make, because as much as the books make money, right, or how authors live, but that's the ideal, right?
Right.
It's what we're actually selling is you're selling Jayne Barnard.
You're selling a piece of your soul.
A little bit, but also when you go to a reading, when you go to a writing, it's not the book I'm into, it's the person out there. Because the thing about that is, it's about connection. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to establish. So if you, yourself, if I know who you are and you're genuine and you're real, I'm going to be naturally more I may not be your target audience, but I'll be more inclined to gravitate towards you. Now somebody else will, right, that is your target audience, will really gravitate towards you.
Well, you will know more if you do read When the Flood Falls. You will know, you will see through the layers of the words on the page to a lot of stuff that's underneath that somebody who wasn't privy to this conversation would never know.
Exactly, and that's kind of, and I think that is the real story, don't you?
Oh, quite possibly.
Yeah.
We cannot write books without putting our soul in there somewhere.
Exactly. So that's that. So again, it went. No plan, and this is what we got. I think this went really well. So, why don't you promote your next book, Miss Darkwing Jayne, right? And how can people find you?
How can people find me? Go to JayneBarnard.ca, and that's Jayne with a Y like Mansfield, JayneBarnard.ca, and there you'll find directions to both my series in their very different moods, styles, and philosophies.
Fair. And your current book?
And my current book is When the Flood Falls, set just west of Calgary at mostly at Bragg Creek, and it has been described as a small-town psychological thriller along the lines of Louise Penny.
And that was my conversation with Jayne Barnard. When the Flood Falls is out now, right now. You can pick it up. It is Jayne's first book as a mystery writer. I really dig it. Some of the themes, the things she's talking about. I think honestly, like, the one thing I can honestly say about anybody I've talked to on this list you're going to hear is they're all incredible people. They all are doing a lot of really, really cool things. And Jayne is no exception. So Jayne, thank you for sharing your story with me. You are welcome back anytime you want. And congratulations on your own Aurora finalist nomination. Good luck tomorrow. I wish I could be there. I had something else I have to do, or I'd find a way. But you, my dear, are going to rock it. You're going to be amazing. You're going to be incredible. And I know anyone that shows up there is going to have a good time. Owl's Nest Books, 7 p.m., Calgary, When the Flood Falls, Jayne Barnard. Check it out. All right, that will do it for another episode of Just Joshing. Now, if you liked what you hear, you can do a bunch of different things to support this podcast. First and foremost, you can subscribe to this podcast, to iTunes, Podomatic, any player you're listening to. You can leave a review. Recommend it to your friends. If you don't like the show, just don't tell anybody, okay? Okay. But thank you for listening, for those that have. Second, you can have my YouTube channel, Josh Penteloresco. A lot of archived episodes are there. Definitely some fun ones there. You should check it out. Beyond that, you have my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, The Wandering God, courtesy of MirrorWorldPublishing.com. Feel free to check them out. Also, Chapters, Kobo, Amazon, Barnes & Noble all have my books as well. Same thing. If you like them, leave them a review on Goodreads or Amazon. And if you don't like it, don't tell anybody. Okay? Okay. Above all else, though, thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Go forth and be awesome. And I'll talk to you guys next time.
Josh.